Thanks a lot. Can you hear me? Thanks a lot. So I'm actually quite happy we're talking about how to regulate AI now that we know how much it can do for us and how much intrusive it might be. So let me start by stating a little bit of the obvious. AI definitely exploding. The investment that we are seeing right now are exceedingly overwhelming and couldn't even be predicted and expected some years ago. It's an industry that is predicted to contribute over 15 trillion to the global economy by the end of the decade. It's no surprise that the interest of the regulator is on the rise. And I am sure that many in this room have been consulting with the legal counsel asking, how do I get compliant with AI rules? How do I get compliant with the AI Act? It's a bit more complicated, more complicated than that. By making a very easy, maybe just a quick research into any search engines, we can see how many times AI is now being quoted into national laws, into even general frameworks such as the AI Act and other federal laws that have been passed worldwide. We see more than 127 countries mentioning AI in a national law, which is something that we definitely didn't observe some years ago. So just the scope of this presentation, what are we going to talk about here? I'm going to give you just a brief overview of what are the main sets of AI framework, the main general AI laws, and what is the approach that several countries and jurisdictions are taking into regulating AI, how it exists, how it coexists with framework that already are in place. GDPR is probably the most famous one that you might be familiar with, and you might be already, hopefully you already are compliant with, so that we understand how AI, sometimes it's really nothing more than a complex data set, much complex. And what are some challenges and opportunities, and how Esomar will help navigating through these uncertain times in the future. And Joaquin said something very important at the beginning when he said that Esomar is here to guide and steer the industry navigating to these uncertain times. And indeed, from our perspective, from the Esomar perspective, I will say that AI is one of the big challenges that we tackled from the last 35 years, from when research was made by pen and papers, asking questions in the street, I assume. I don't know how it's done, knocking on doors, and how AI play a key role. It's just another difficulty that we will help override. So some AI principles. This looks a little bit like Asimov, iRobot kind of slide. These AI principles were not born in a vacuum. So in the absence of regulation in the last 50 years, because it's a conversation that academics had in the last 50, 60 years in the making, in the absence of a general framework, what the AI Act aims to be, many institutions, public institutions, national and supranational, like the OECD, are formulating some AI principles that in the end prove to be applicable in everyday life by any corporation dealing with AI services. And just to summarize them, those AI principles, these are the main achievements that AI should aim at promoting: inclusive growth, sustainable development, well-being, creating AI that its center is coordinated with human values and principle of fairness, transparency and explainability. We often see the new acronym XAI, which stands for Explainable Artificial Intelligence, a principle that will prove to be crucial in the next years. Robust and secure AI, which goes together with cybersecurity, of course, and accountability. AI cannot be accountable by itself. Humans will always be liable for what AI produces. Again, a lot of nascent efforts. We're talking about more than 130 laws by now worldwide. Not all of them require compliance for people in this room, obviously. Some frameworks prove to be more general, more overarching than others. We see different approaches, different regulatory approaches in the world. We have on one side the European Union aiming at creating a blanket regulation, a general regulation that covers most AI applications that are possible, while the US, on the other side, takes a more narrower approach, regulating specific AI regulations, such as AI in the workplace, AI in education, and AI in healthcare. The US is leading this classification, this ranking, when it comes to passing AI laws, even though it's missing for now a proposal for a federal general law, with Spain and the Philippines following, which I found surprising. We say different approaches. The EU approach is probably the most visible one. It's the one that we all heard in the last months. It actually started in 2021 with a declaration of AI principles. It tends to be the first legal framework on AI ever. We've seen that it's not the first one when it comes to AI laws, but it tends to be the first general framework regulating AI as a whole. It includes several principles. Mostly, it's both an enunciation of key principles that align with the European values of fairness, equality, justice. But it has a very specific approach when it comes to risk. So it includes mentions four risk categories, starting from the highest risk category, which is forbidden uses for AI. So AI applications that are not possible at all. So let's take for example. Subliminal conditioning of humans, all subliminal techniques, those will be completely banned under the AI Act as it stands for now, and it includes also other risk categories such as high risk, which will require ex ante assessment, so assessments before the AI system is actually deployed, and continuous controls over its life cycle. Again, it's grounded on fundamental rights, and this is really an attempt for the European Union, from the European institutions, to be the leaders when it comes to AI ethics. We all know that in Europe we don't have the biggest developers for AI application. They don't come from Europe; they often come from the US. But this is, as for GDPR, an attempt to position Europe as the ethical powerhouse when it comes to AI. This is a list of the four risk categories. So we start from the unacceptable risk, which are completely prohibited. We have high risk applications, so that require ex ante assessments. Ex ante means before the AI system is developed and is deployed. We then have a third category, limited risk AI system. These are all those applications, so for example, as chatbots, virtual assistants, AI assistants, where there is a direct interaction between the AI, between the machine, and the human. The goal of this risk approach base and of this category is making sure that whenever the human is interacting with the machine, is aware it's interacting with a machine. Doesn't have any false expectations for all those ethical values and human emotions that you would otherwise expect from a human interlocutor. But you must know you're talking to a machine. And then we have a fourth category, minimal, no-risk AI, that would be permitted without any restrictions. Here we are talking more about AI that doesn't interact with human per se and are not able to create any inherent risk to the individual. So as we say, there are several regulatory trends and approaches. There are many more than that. These are the three biggest models, the three main categories that we are observing right now. We have the European model, as we say it. The European model, the European approach is taking, the approach the European Union is taking is that of regulating the general principles, forbidding certain applications and providing certain requirements and certain conditions for other AI systems to exist and to coexist with humans. We have the US model. It's currently based on voluntary recommendations and standards. Again, here we don't observe a federal approach, but it's very divided among states, and is often focuses on narrow sectorial activities. AI, how AI is used in the workplace, for example, how AI is used in healthcare, how AI is used in the schools for educational purposes. We then have the Chinese model, which it might look as more fragmented because all the AI proposals and all the regulatory proposals and the legal proposal, they may come from different entities, not only from the state level, but also from the city and provincial level. So while it might appear from the outside to be more fragmented, however, it's much in line with with government principles and government AI guidelines, which have been published in 2017. So while it's true that there are more actors that contribute to this constellation of laws, they all remain aligned to the core principles of the PRC. I will just go quickly through the specifics. So in the USA, there is again no state-level proposal, and the US Congress has failed to pass comprehensive legislation so far, despite actually many attempts. There are several guidelines and guidance that has been issued by key actors, such as the AI risk management framework, which is really important, and the blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, which eventually will pave the way to a federal level legislation. Important attempt is the one from Illinois to regulate artificial intelligence video interview act. I recommend you reading this bill, which really gives you an idea of what is the path that the US is taking in regulating AI. And something that is not unique to the US, but we also see in Europe, is relying on existing regulatory bodies to regulate and to make sure that all these legislation that are being passed are actually enforced. In this case, this is often the FTC. Again, when you go to China, the situation changes a bit. While we see that in Europe and in the US, existing regulatory bodies, such as the data protection authorities in EU, which we are all familiar, are assuming this role, are taking the leads when it comes to regulate AI. In China, we are observing our new special committees and administration agencies are born specifically to regulate AI and to enforce these new regulations. All AI regulation and guidelines, including provincial and local level, they remain aligned with the Next Generation AI Development Plan, which was published in 2017. To give you an idea, GDPR in Europe was passed came into force in 2018. I said earlier that there is an intersection between AI and privacy. I probably oversimplified saying that AI is just a bigger data set of data. When it comes to personal data, this is, of course, it's an oversimplification, but it remains accurate and gives us an idea on why existing bodies, such as the data protection authorities, play a fundamental role when it comes to regulating AI. AI needs data to exist, and might also need personal data, and that's where the DPA, the data protection authorities, come back stronger with more legitimacy even. As we can imagine, the explosion of AI application and the fact that ChatGPT and OpenAI just brought AI-based application to consumers in our pockets really activated back the DPAs, making sure that these data are not misused and that these tools are not used to harm citizens. These are the investigations. Oh, you cannot see the flags. These are the investigations from the DPAs in the last 6 months. These are principles that we're all familiar with when it comes to GDPR. So lack of lawful basis, consent, asking consent to citizens, to data subjects before collecting personal data, transparency notices, the privacy policy and cookie statement, which we are familiar with, that access, subject request, accountability, purpose limitation, age verification. Those are still rules that remain applicable. They are applicable with GDPR, CCPA, and other data protection laws, and they remain applicable for AI applications as well. Which brings us to the DPA's G7. So there is a G7 only for data protection authorities. I'm assuming it's a very interesting meeting. They've released, in their statement, they highlighted how generative AI, ChatGPT, they indeed present risk and potentially harm the privacy and the data protection of data subjects. Therefore, this coordination, this overlap between privacy and data protection, it really remains key for researchers to remain compliant. So there are some other challenges when dealing with AI that we are all familiar with. Biases in AI, those are, I'm often told by research colleagues that it's actually impossible to remove biases. At least they can be mitigated, but not removed at all. Of course, in AI and big AI datasets, any bias may be amplified to the extreme, even resulting in harm for the subjects. And representation, making sure that data remain representative and they remain as bias-free as possible. It will definitely be an area of concern for the regulator, and definitely an area where we can expect more regulation. Legacy structures, the need to update the structure, the corporative structures that we have to make sure that we are able to deal with the compliance requirements that will be brought to us by the regulator, and we are able to respond and keep a flexible approach. I am sure that all of our organizations have changed significantly after 2018, when GDPR came into force. You probably never heard about a DPO before 2018. Now you probably go to the DPO at least once a week to make sure that your data set is compliant with GDPR. This will change again, and the corporative structure will need to be flexible and able to adapt to these new requirements. Lack of legal certainty. We mentioned 127 laws being passed in the year so far. We will definitely go past this number by the end of the year. So this whole constellation of laws which lack harmonization because come from different regulators, from different legislators, and is regulated differently by different authorities in different jurisdictions, it poses another significant obstacle when it comes to compliance. So what are we doing at Esomar? Again, as Joachim said, we are here to help the industry thrive and navigate through uncertain times. And as digitalization of research was probably the artificial intelligence of the 80s, I suppose, artificial intelligence, again, is just another obstacle that we need to overcome together, and we are working to offer as much guidelines as possible to navigate through this obscure time and make it a little bit less obscure. So we are working on a checklist which is called Esomar 22 questions to help buyers of AI-based services for market research. The title is really says everything. We don't like short titles in Esomar.
Thank you, Claudio. That was fantastic. I don't think my microphone is turned on. Thank you, Claudio. That was good. Do we have any questions? We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Put your hand up and a microphone will come to you. Who's going to give us the first question? Right in the middle, Monique. Oh.
Thank you.
How do you feel about the impact on regulations on early stage companies versus incumbents? So it's not necessarily an argument that I would make, but some people argue that overly regulatory bodies can lead to incumbents having an unfair advantage, and then less innovation, worse impact on clients, worse impact on consumers.
So the question was, if we get to regulation, will it favour incumbents versus new entrants into the scene?
I think it's too early to say that. The AI Act has not been even negotiated yet. For the draft that we are able to see right now, that we've been assessing right now, there is a willingness from the legislator not to overburden, not to be too incumbent with new players, and not to limit the development of AI, making sure that researchers are able to keep innovating and using AI to innovate AI itself. There are concerns about how AI might not be at a level where it's yet possible to develop it for public in certain areas. More for example, when it deals with minors or with vulnerable individuals. So there is definitely the willingness to help innovation. The limitations that we observe the most are in those high risk and forbidden use cases, which will be updated on a yearly basis by the Commission. But those are really fringe situations where AI can actually be physically harmful to people. So again, subliminal techniques, subliminal messages. This is the only segment where we actually see not obstacles, but total block by the legislator. I hope it answers.
Yeah, I think there is a concern when we see Facebook, Alphabet, OpenAI all calling for legislation, that the reason for that is that they want to restrict new people. Another question. Do we have another question in the room?